Thanks, Glenn. Hi, everyone. I'm Jane, and I'm an alcoholic. And I consider it an honor and a privilege to speak at an AA meeting. So I want to thank the group for asking me to speak and giving me the opportunity to be of service. Um, so usually when I speak, I just straightforward go with what happened, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. What it was like. I didn't grow up in an alcoholic family. My parents will celebrate their 60th wedding anniversary next month. I am not. My sister has two wine coolers, and she starts singing. If they still even make wine coolers anymore, I don't know. Um, so my family was really befuddled with me. Like, what is wrong with her? Why is she drinking like this? And I was the same way. I didn't know. I didn't understand. And I was a pretty good kid in high school because there wasn't a lot of drinking in my family. My parents weren't abusive. They weren't dysfunctional. They were a little bit, they weren't all that affectionate, and they weren't very expressive emotionally. Neither one of them. They were both chemists and scientists. So they were, detail oriented and very logical, and emotional things were always frowned upon. It was not a joyful household, but it wasn't a sad household either. I felt a lot of security growing up. I knew my parents loved me. They just weren't very expressive. That was fine for my sister. She seems to have done just fine with that. But for me, it didn't work. And I didn't understand that really growing up. I just felt, I knew like something was just off with me. I was just not right. I didn't fit in. I didn't really wasn't until I was a junior or a senior in high school that I found a group of girlfriends that we hung out together. We were good kids. We just went to the mall. We weren't very exciting. I got good grades just because there was nothing better to do. And I ran into one of my girlfriend's boyfriends in AA, the first few years after I came in, and he said, "Gosh, it's really good to see you after all this time, but I'm surprised to see you here because you weren't really into anything." And I really wasn't. I was pretty boring. I wasn't a jock. I wasn't popular. I wasn't a nerd. I just sort of was there. I was just existing in high school. Um, I started to go to parties my senior year in high school, and it was the kind of parties that I can't imagine they still do these today. I can't believe we got away with it. But the parents would go down the shore for the weekend. I'm from the Philadelphia area, so the Jersey Shore is a big draw for people in this area. So the parents would go down the shore for the weekend and leave their teenage kids at home. And so the teenage kids would have a party Friday or Saturday night, and there was a keg in the laundry room sink. And, the cops would be called after, I don't know, a few hours, and the party would get broken up. No one would be in trouble. It was just dumb teenage kids. And I would get a beer from the keg, and I just thought it was just so god awful. How could anyone drink this stuff? So I would just nurse it and wouldn't really drink it and get the effect. So I didn't really start drinking until I went to college. Like I said, I had good grades, and I went to a small private school up near Easton, Pennsylvania, in Easton's, which is near Bethlehem, Allentown area, the Lehigh Valley. And I was terrified. Academically, I might have been ready to go to school, but emotionally, I was not. I was really, really immature emotionally. And I was absolutely terrified. And that very first night of college, before I had even gone to any classes, I went out to my first fraternity party, and I was pointed toward this big, it was a big trash can with a trash can liner, and the booze was full to the top of this trash can. And I was told it was Kool-Aid laced with grain alcohol. And I didn't know any different. All I had ever done was really nursed beers. But I did know that with grain alcohol, you don't taste it, and I knew it was stronger. That's really all I knew. I know I had at least 4 of those red Solo cups. like right after the other. And what happened next was absolutely magical for me. It's almost like just everything that was blocking me in my head for of feeling right or feeling like that I wasn't quite right, that I didn't fit in. All of that just was swept away once I drank the alcohol and it affected me and I felt it. I don't remember like linearly the night. I don't remember the whole night. I had what I guess are called brownouts. I was coming in and out. I remember dancing and having a great time and laughing and meeting people. And now what actually happened, who knows? I thought I was like the world's greatest dancer and conversationalist, but whether that was true or not, who knows? But I don't remember leaving the party. I don't remember getting back to my dorm room. And when I woke up, I was in bed alone, thank God, and I was still fully dressed, and I obviously had not brushed my teeth or washed my face or gotten ready for bed. I had just fallen into bed. And I felt awful. I was like, oh, this is what a hangover is. Okay, this is not fun. But I got into the shower, I got changed. I went to my first college class ever. It was English, and the professor was the typical stereotype. He had like a bob cut and a tweed jacket and the little wire rimmed glasses. Professor Woolley was his name, and he kept us the entire hour and a half. And I was hearing all these other classes getting out early, the first class, and I just sat there in agony at the desk, didn't hear what he was saying. I was just watching the clock. And finally the bell rang. And I was the first one out the door, into the women's room next door, right into the first open stall. And I, on my knees, and just threw everything up. And as I was vomiting in the public bathroom in the party hall and kneeling into the toilet, my face in the toilet, I'm thinking to myself, this is fantastic. I have finally found the answer. It's alcohol. Okay, I overdid it. I overdid it last night, but I haven't done this before. I'm new to this. I just need to learn how to do this right. I went overboard, but I'm good. Now I know what to do. This is my answer. And that's what I attempted to do for the next 8 years. I attempted to drink right for the next 8 years. And I was, needless to say, not successful. Spoiler alert, here I am. I was not successful learning to drink right. So, but that first year, my first semester in college, I just coasted off of what I knew in high school. Second semester in college, I got nailed grade-wise and course-wise. I was on academic probation because I was basically failing all my classes. And so my response to that was I changed my major. And here is what I don't think, all of this was just, I look back on it now and it's all so pivotal. Ever since I was a little kid, I knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. I knew what I wanted to do. Everything I did, everything I volunteered for, every place I worked part-time, every book I read, was all about doing this one thing when I got into college and graduated. That's what I wanted to do with my life. And I went to this school with that major. I went in with that major. And that's all it took was drinking and not wanting to be in such a rigorous course load that second semester, when I almost pretty much failed out, my sophomore year, I changed my major. And I don't think that's what normal drinkers do. They don't just change, make a life-altering decision because they want to drink. And I did it without even a second thought. It didn't even cross my mind that you are giving up on a dream you've had since you were, first able to walk. And, it just didn't matter. It didn't even occur to me that maybe I should look at why I was making this decision. I just wanted to drink it because alcohol felt so right and so important and so powerful. I had to just, to me, it was a no-brainer. I had to just keep drinking no matter what. I blacked out all the time, all the time. It was an unusual night if I was drinking and I didn't black out. And at first I thought that happened to everybody. And when I realized it didn't happen to everybody, instead of being worried, I thought, well, it's a very small price to pay. I'm on a college campus and I'm pretty safe. And it's a small 100-acre campus. I wasn't driving, thank God. I didn't have a car there for the first few years. And even when I did, there was no reason to go off campus because every single fraternity house had a keg on tap in the basement. And as long as you were a member of the student body, you could be a guy from a different house and go in to any house and drink. And certainly the girls were allowed to go anywhere and drink. And they never checked ID. They never charged anything. So guess what I learned to drink? I learned to drink beer, like the worst kind, the cheapest kind that you'd always have in a fraternity house. And it just went downhill from there. I was drinking daily, very, very soon into my college career. And like I said, almost always blacking out. And that was the way it went for those. When I changed my major to an easier course load, I was able to get by. I was able to get decent grades. I wasn't doing, super, but I was doing okay. I was able to graduate. There was one class I almost failed that would have kept me from graduating. And I pulled a weekend in the library studying the entire course that one weekend and managed to pass the final. So I passed the class, I think, with a C or a C minus. I was able to graduate. And, so I thought, well, if I graduate, there's nothing wrong with me. I just, whatever. Again, never thinking, what about your dream? What about what you've always wanted to do? And so once I graduated from college, I was like, well, now what am I going to do? I got this degree that I wasn't planning on, and it's kind of general. It's not really focused like my original idea. So I tried to get a job, and that was not happening. And I did finally get a really, oh God, it was an awful job. Awful job. I was selling frozen food. If you could freeze it, I probably sold it. And it was all, there was no office. Well, there was an office, but I didn't have to go into it. I just had to go out in my car every day and drive around to different places that wanted to place reorders for the food. And I took my appointments for the day off of a phone system. This was it was 88, sorry, 87 to 88. So there was no, there was no internet. There was none of that stuff. I called into a recorded system and took the appointments off. And then I did my job and everything was paper. There was nothing to submit. So I would call that same system in the evening and give them my report. And so I was not talking to anyone. I was just listening to a recording and then providing a recording. So, which is a great job for an alcoholic. And also my appointments didn't start until 11 a.m. or 1 p.m. and I was usually done by 7 p.m. So I could sleep off, mostly sleep off a hangover. I was still living with my parents' house and just driving around. So I would, just things that I would do, like I'd wear the same clothes almost the entire week. So I could save on dry cleaning bills. Like I was really clever in doing that. And just, things that just aren't sober things to do. They're not horrible. Like I'm not going to die if I wear the same clothes every day, but it's just not classy, not dignity, not dignified. And I didn't care. because I just wanted things to be easy so that I could drink. So every day when I went out, I would pick up a bottle of whiskey. Usually, Southern Comfort was my favorite. I love, because I'm a sweet tooth, I loved Southern Comfort. Whiskey was was my drink of choice. I would drink anything, obviously, except ouzo. Oh my God, I can't stand licorice. That stuff is awful. But of course, I did drink it when it was the only thing there. But certainly, um, I would drink anything. When I couldn't, when I didn't, only my parents. My parents aren't alcoholics, but they had a lot of wine. And one time I was so desperate, I put port wine in Diet Coke and drank that because you wouldn't know it. I was drinking, it looked like Diet Coke. Of course, after a while, it looked like wine more than Coke, but I was filling up their bottles, their gin and their they'd have Tanqueray. They had Tanqueray in the freezer from my aunt who lives in Chicago, who never visited, but they had it in there. I can't even tell you how many times I filled that thing up over and over and then replaced it and then drank it and refilled it with water and then replaced it. And it was crazy, but now I'm getting ahead of myself. So anyway, I'd get this Southern Comfort, or I did go to Seagram 7 eventually because Southern Comfort was in a clear bottle and we were just starting to recycle clear bottles and the recycling can's open. So I can't have all these Southern Comfort bottles sitting in the recycling can. But Seagram 7 is a dark bottle, so I could throw that in a trash can or a trash bag in the regular trash. So I started drinking Seagram 7, and I'd put that, I'd get my paper bag and put the bottle under the car seat with me, and it would roll around all day while I'm doing my orders as I'm driving around Philadelphia and New Jersey doing my orders, and listening to that thing rolling around. It was kind of like that white noise, that calming, you hear the ocean, you hear the birds chirping. Hearing that bottle rolling around under the car seat with me had that calming effect to get me through the day. Then I'd get home and I would start drinking in front of my parents, but they wouldn't see me really start drinking until they went to bed, and they went to bed fairly early because they were still working at that time. And then I would sit up and I would finish at least half the bottle, if not more, and I would watch old Columbo reruns. Part of the murder movie mystery, whatever, McLeod and McMillan and Wife and Columbo, but I only watched Columbo. It was the only one. I loved Columbo. And I would just drink until I passed out. And a lot of times I'd pass out before the ending. So I started videotaping the Columbos so that I could watch the endings later, never thinking people don't do this. This is VHS. This is like still a while ago. This is still the late 80s. People don't do that. They don't videotape what they're watching because they know they're not going to remember the ending. And it never occurred to me that this is not normal behavior, not healthy behavior. It just was what I had to do. And I asked my parents after I got sober, didn't I ever fall down the stairs or leave the dog out or, do something that while after you guys went to bed and so they're like, no, we knew you were drinking a lot, but there was nothing that, and you were a hostile bitch, but that's not there. They didn't say that, but that was basically what they meant. And I was hostile. I was horrible to them. And I didn't realize that, my mother had said to my father, she has to leave. She has to go. My sister told me that later. Anyway, after I got sober. Anyway, they said, no, you just were drinking you were drinking, all of our wine, and it was annoying, but we didn't see you. Like, it was just port, just god awful port wine. Who do you care about that? Anyway. So my dad would drink dark beer. He would buy a case of dark beer. He would have one after work. So this case would last him, a little over a month. And that was safe because I wasn't big on dark beer. but but they had other stuff. They had other stuff and I had other stuff. I would drink dark beer if there was nothing else. The Secchi's was his favorite. So anyway, um, you know, I just I was just this hostile creature living in their house with no future, with this job with no future. I mean, what I was making on the job was not even enough for me to get my own apartment. The car that I had, my dad had bought me. It just, and I had a college degree that was pretty much wasn't using, was useless, whatever. I was absolutely miserable and hostile, and I drank too much. But I never saw that those two conditions were connected. Never made any sense to me. Never occurred to me that those two conditions were connected. I could just see everyone else that I went to college, even people I drank with in college, getting married, having kids, having real jobs, buying houses, you know, and thinking, why don't I have this? Why am I not? What's wrong with me? And what's like, why is life treating me so badly? Why can't I do this too? You know, I just never understood that my drinking was was crippling me this way. I had no friends. I didn't know anyone there. I wasn't seeing anyone. All of my high school friends were gone. They were, you know, starting their lives, and my college friends didn't live near me, so I was really alone. But I thought I preferred being alone. So, of course, that's, you know, one of the lies that I told myself. So anyway, my parents said, um, you know, we'll help you if you want to go back to school. And you have to save as much as you can. You have to work out there. You have to take out loans, but we'll fill in the gaps if you want to go back to school. And I thought, well, that's perfect. That's what I need. I need to get, you know, I need to get a targeted degree so that I can find a job. You know, not realizing that I was taking myself out there and I was still going to be myself no matter what I did. But that's what I did. I packed up everything and I went to the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana for a 2-year program, 2-year master's program. And for the first year of that program, I know why they call it a geographical cure, because I was better. I was definitely better those first 10 months. I was still drinking, of course, and I still had a half gallon now of Seagram 7 in my apartment at all times. But it wasn't nearly as much as I wasn't always blacking out. In fact, I wasn't really blacking out at that point. I made a lot of friends that first year of grad school, and I got really good grades. And I thought, oh, it was such a relief. Oh, I'm okay. You know, this was the problem. I needed to go back to school. I was stuck at home, and that's why I was drinking, and on and on and on. But as we all know, geographical cures are only temporary, and mine certainly was. After the first year, I stayed in Illinois for a summer session, took 2 classes over the summer. And during that summer session, I started to just spiral right back. My drinking started to go, the level of the Seagram 7 bottle would start to go lower and lower every day, as opposed to what it had been. I was starting to black out again. You know, I was just working my way back to the same amounts that I drank when I was at home. And yes, by the time I was in my second year of this program, my grades were dropping again. And my friends were like, whoa, you know, they always knew me as a big drinker. I was considered a big drinker that first year. And I'm like, this is nothing. You've got no idea. This is me being good. But the second year, it got back to, you know, where it was. I was right back where I was. I stayed in denial for a little bit. I had even brought the Columbo videotapes with me to school. So I was watching them again. And I was drinking by myself late at night till I passed out. Although I was still going out a lot with friends. So I felt like I'm in college, you know, it's different. I fed myself all kinds of all kinds of excuses. But the main thing is that I was fortunately, it was only a 2-year program, so I did graduate. If it would have been a 3-year program or any longer, I don't think I think I would have had a lot of trouble. I was progressing. My progression was just, it was like light speed. I never drank socially, except when I was nursing the beers and wasn't really drinking. So I never drank socially, which, I can't explain it. There's no alcoholism that we know of in my family. My aunt from Chicago, she loves her martinis. Well, she's passed away at this point, but and she did fine. She was a professor of microbiology at the University of Illinois, and in Chicago. And she and her husband moved to Palm Springs, California. There, well, they don't have any kids, so that helps. But so they have a nice place, and but anyway, so okay, she loved her martinis, but she seemed to do okay. And I didn't interact with her enough to really know, but there didn't really seem to be any other alcoholism in my family. Aunts, uncles, cousins, not that we know of. And, I don't harp on that and I don't dwell on that. It is what it is. I am. And I guess my point is that it doesn't need to be a family in your family. You don't have to come from a dysfunctional family, although it helps. I'm joking, but you could still be an alcoholic. You can still be an alcoholic if, no one in your family has it. If you're a young female, which is what I thought, I'm too young, I'm a woman, there aren't any women alcoholics, at least not at my age, is what I thought. And I wasn't abused. I wasn't, didn't have any childhood traumas, and you could still become an alcoholic. You can still have this disease, is my point. Again, I'm getting off track, so I'm coming back now. So anyway, I graduated from Illinois and couldn't get a job, couldn't find a job then. I came back home to Philadelphia, and before I knew it, I was back in my old bedroom. I was back in my parents' house with the same car and no friends, no relationships. Nothing had changed. Nothing, except that I had a piece of paper. Nothing had changed. And I was just so frustrated at that point. Like, I'm doing everything I'm expected to do. I haven't crashed any cars. I haven't run a household into debt. I haven't abused a spouse or children. I haven't lost my house or my car, blah, blah, blah. And I really honestly didn't understand that I didn't have those things to lose because I was drinking. I would look at it like, I haven't done that. Well, you didn't have it to lose. You didn't have a husband to abuse. You didn't have kids to abuse because you were drunk. And that just never occurred to me. The cunning, baffling, powerful. When I first heard how it works, I didn't hear much of it because I was in a fog, but I did hear that. I heard cunning, baffling, and powerful. And that hit me right in the chest. That is exactly what this is. I get that. I feel that. Cunning, baffling, and powerful. Very powerful, very cunning, and very baffling. I was very baffled. Anyway, at that point, a few months went by and I just kind of floundered for a bit. I was still drinking. I wound up getting a job with a local entrepreneur, and he made accessories like bracelets, keychains, wallets for the extreme sports, which was just starting, the snowboarding, skateboarding. So he designed this stuff. He would go up to New York to get the materials, and I ran his business for him. And there were a few other employees, and it was very challenging. I learned a lot in that job, but there's no money in it. And I still wasn't making any money, so I was still living with my parents. And my boss took me out to San Diego for a trade show. The Extreme Sports had a trade show every year. I can't remember what it was called, but anyway, we were out in San Diego for it. And I was very nervous because at this point, I had really been trying to control my drinking. I wasn't ready to admit that I was an alcoholic. I had called Alcoholics Anonymous to find out if there were meetings. I had gone to the library and taken out a ton of books to learn about alcoholism, because I learned about it, then I could do something, right? Self-knowledge would fix it. I think Bill W. and I, great minds think alike, right? You know, especially when we're drunk. I just felt, okay, I haven't hit bottom. I'm not as bad as these people. Someone told me later that I thought I had a mild case of severe alcoholism. And I had no idea what he was meant by that. Now I understand. I had no idea. What are you talking about? So anyway, I felt I'm not ready for AA. I'm not that bad. I can get a handle on this before it gets out of hand, and so I can keep drinking. But I was trying to not drink. I was trying to abstain because of a medical condition. And once I had surgery to correct it, I was totally planning on going back to drinking. And anyway, so I get out to San Diego. We're in the booth. Our boss stepped out for a bit, and we had flown in this guy from Hawaii to work in the booth with us, because this is the sort of thing he did too. He was very familiar with the market, and he was familiar with the customers. And so we brought him in, and he was having a really bad morning. He worked a long time with one couple, and they just sort of walked away. And he came over, and he was really despondent. And I went over to console him and talk to him about the couple. And he said, no, his problem was not the job. The problem was that he said that we were talking on a Saturday. Yes, it was a Saturday, I think. Just that week, he had lost his full-time job. He had lost his girlfriend, and he had been kicked out of his apartment, and he had dropped out of school. Oh, geez, my gosh, what happened? And he said, I'm an alcoholic, and I've been sober for a year and a half, except I just drank this past week, and I'm just a mess. And right when he said that, one word flashed through my head. One word, wasn't my voice. One word, and the word was now. And I knew it meant say something now. And again, it wasn't me. My mouth opened and I said, Mike, I think I'm one too. And that was not me. That was just me not knowing it at the time, being willing. All I was willing. I just did not consciously say all that. And so that was another pivot moment. And Mike looked at me, and we just started talking, and he took me to my first 3 AA meetings in San Diego. And the first one was huge. And well, it felt huge. At least 100 people in like a fellowship hall in a church. I don't know if it was a church or not. I can't remember. And it was the first place I stood up and introduced myself as an alcoholic. And I was encouraged, but it was just nice. It was the second meeting that really clinched my resolve to get sober. It was a smaller space. I want to say 35 to 40 people. And they asked people who were from out of town to stand up and introduce themselves. So I did that at the beginning. And the chairperson called on people. You didn't raise your hand or put your name in a book or anything. He called on people, and he called on me to share. And I got up and went over to the podium, first time sharing in an AA meeting. And I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. But all I did was explain to them how I got there that night. Talk to them about Mike and what had happened. And I remember looking out at all the faces of the people in that room. And that's when I saw that's when I saw, I think I saw my higher power for the first time in those people's faces. And that's when I realized that this is the answer. This is the solution. I even thought about that night in college when I was vomiting in the toilet stall, thinking I had found the solution. And it was the juxtaposition that, no, this is the answer. This is what I've been looking for my entire life. And alcohol just lies. It just lies to me. Maybe other people can drink it safely. Maybe it lies to them, but they don't hear it. I listened to those lies, for like almost a decade. And I just felt so unbelievably relieved that night. That was the night that I call it, for those of you who are old enough to remember, the nesty plunge. That's when I actually just surrendered. I totally surrendered and surrendered to the program, surrendered to my higher power. And Mike took me to another meeting the next night. But when I got home to Philadelphia, I threw myself into AA. I did everything that was suggested. I rode that roller coaster. For me, I had the pink cloud for, I want to say not quite a year, maybe. I just did everything that was suggested. And before I forget, which I always do, Mike is still sober. The Hawaiian sales guy is still sober. And I saw him again in 2017 when my family went to Hawaii for spring break. And he lives in Kauai, and he has 3 retail stores. And I think one of them he had to give up because of the pandemic. I don't really remember, but he's married. He has 2 beautiful daughters that are now in college, and he's doing great. So he celebrated 30 years of sobriety in February of this year. And it's a miracle. It's absolutely a miracle. How when I look back on that to me, that our meeting like that, and just such a gift. And I don't believe that he and I are special for getting that. I just feel that we recognize it, or we were willing. I really do believe that our higher powers give us gifts like this all the time. It's just, are we willing? Are we open? Do we see it? Do we hear it? That's for me anyway. That's where I am. So anyway, like I said, I got into recovery right away. I've worked the steps. I was a sponsor. I've sponsored people. I think I've done every single service position, everything from grapevine rep to intergroup rep to hospitals and institutions, phones, I've done it all. It's everything, it's all part of the whole to keep me in this beyond my wildest dreams and keep me moving forward, because to me, I'm either moving toward a drink or away from a drink. I know people say it's not, sometimes they say it's not about a drink. For me, it's always about a drink, always about a drink. I'm either moving toward a drink or away from a drink. And I used to cope by drinking. So everything I do is based on staying away from that first drink. That is my foundation. When I get up in the morning, whether it's automatic, and I just staying sober, staying in recovery, staying in this program, absolutely number one, because I was told early on, anything I put in front of my sobriety, I'm going to lose anyway. And I wholeheartedly believe that involves children, spouse, job, money, anything. Anything I put in front of my sobriety, I'm going to lose it anyway. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen to other people. And as bad as I feel for them, I'm going to learn from their research. And I'm very grateful that, I came in here. Well, I came in here in February 1992. My last drink was December 30th, 1991. And I was 26 years old. Um, and now I think to be an old timer, you have to have 40 years of sobriety. They keep moving it. They keep moving, you know, when I had 20 years, then it became 30. Now I have 30, it's become 40. So I'll never be an old timer. You know, I've just accepted that. But I'll keep trying. I'll keep trying. I met my husband in the program. Um, I met him my second year of sobriety. We met, started dating soon after that. He passed away 3 years ago, unexpectedly. And that was horrible. That was probably the hardest thing I've dealt with in sobriety. But I don't think I ever even came close to picking up a drink. I mean, I look back and say that now. When I was going through it, I was not about to fool myself into thinking that I was, safe from drinking. Um, Anytime like that, I'll sit closer to the program, closer to my friends. It was unbelievably god awful, horrible. Especially since at the time, our daughter was 13, and I didn't have to drink over it. And I always wonder what would happen if something really horrible happened. Would I be able to stay sober? And I just found out, careful what you ask, careful what you wish for. But I saw other people doing it. I can name off the top of my head, I can think of 5 people that I know in this program who have lost children, whose children have died either through suicide or accidents or addiction, and they're still sober. And watching that, seeing that, told me I could, when my husband died, I can do that too. I can stay sober. I can do this. So anyway, so in the last, I think I have like 10 more minutes left. In the last 10 minutes, I'll talk about the book. So I guess it was 1998. Sorry, my decades are getting all mixed up. 1988. No. 98. Sorry. The Grapevine put out the request for stories. They were updating. We're going to make a 4th edition of the big book. And I thought, oh, that sounds like a great idea. So I took my little putty colored, like this big with the little screen with the green word, and I typed up my story and printed it out on my dot matrix printer. And well, actually, I rewrote it, not rewrite it. Then the next night I looked at it again, made a lot of edits. Then I printed it out on my dot matrix printer and sent it in, and didn't think anything else of it. It felt good. It felt cleansing. It was sort of like a mini fifth step. Didn't think anything of it. Then I read that there were, 2 years later, I read that they were down to like the last, I don't know, 40, 42 or 44 or 48 stories, where they were going to cut that in half. And I thought, gosh, that was 3 years ago. I've moved, so my forwarding address it's already gone. It's elapsed. It's been 2 years. So I emailed the Grapevine and told them that I had put my story in and I've already moved and blah, blah, blah. And I felt silly. But they emailed me the next day and said, your story is still under consideration. So please give us your new information. I was just, oh my God, I was absolutely floored. I was just, oh my gosh. So I sent all that off. And then they told me they would let us know by the summer, June or July. So when the letter came, it was in a business envelope. And I thought, surely they would be sending, if they had accepted my story, they'd be sending me a packet with my story printed and edits made, and I would have to, accept the changes and, all that stuff. So this is just a little business letter envelope. So it must be a bong letter, which is what we called rejection letters, bong letters in college. I opened it up and it was 2 pieces of paper. And the first piece of paper said, we want to use your story. And the second piece of paper said, sign it over. And that was it. Talk about keeping it simple. They did what they wanted to do. So I could take it or leave it. Like, okay. So that's all I did. And and they did keep it a lot like I wrote it. They changed the title. Title is Student of Life, and that was not my title. But anyway, it has been such a gift. It is such a gift to know that maybe somebody read it, all the way across the country and was helped by it. Talk about anonymity. There's no. I really don't know how people found me. I think one guy, he's a DCM here. He knew my DCM and he knew people, so it just sort of got out. So I don't really share. I don't usually share about it at meetings, and I don't usually share about it when I speak either, unless I'm asked to specifically. But you know what? The fifth edition is being done now. They've asked for more stories, so my days of fame and fortune are slowly fading, except there's no fortune or fame actually. And but what a gift! What a gift! And I'll tell you what, one of the biggest gifts of this is, I was just 26 when I came in here. They published my story when I was 33. So I was still pretty young. And they used to someone told me once, yeah, we heard you were in the big book. We kept looking for you at a meeting. Like I was speaking at a meeting and was face to face because they did that back then. And so we were looking for an old lady. And I said, well, maybe now, I'm pushing 60 now, but back then I was just in my 30s. And anyway, so I still would think every now and then, well, I was young, I was in college, I had so much going on, just maybe it was just a phase, maybe drinking was just a phase, and I'm not really an alcoholic. And you know what? When the literature committee of the General Service Office of AA World Services thinks that your story belongs in the big book, guess what? You're a drunk. And that also is a gift. That is a gift because it's, don't even bother, sister. And I am so grateful. I am so grateful. I'm happy for the fifth edition as well. I'm happy to pass it on, spirit of rotation. I'm just so grateful for everything I've been given and have earned in this program, this learning how to do life, stay sober, recovery. What I have now really is beyond my wildest dreams. I am devastated at the loss of my husband, but I can tell even 3 years later that, I'll never get over it. No, I won't stop grieving him, but I, just like a lot of things, I'm learning to carry it. And I'm learning, I'm growing around it and bringing it forward with me and learning how to do that. Acceptance. Don't like it, but I accept it. And I wouldn't have that if it weren't for this program. So things that today are second nature are things that were just unfathomable to me before, would never cross my mind. That your husband's dead and you can't change it. That would not cross my mind. I would live in denial probably the rest of my life. I've seen people do it. I'm just so grateful for this program. And I'm so grateful for my recovery. And I'm also just very, very grateful to be able to share with you this afternoon. And I want to thank you again for the opportunity. And that is a wrap. That's all I have. Thanks.